Good morning and welcome to Adult Sunday School here at Grounded Church. And today our lesson is going to be one in a two-part series called Scientific Proof for God. This is part one, and it's a very unique lesson on giving scientific proof for the existence of God, just like the title says. So I feel like this lesson is needed for these days that we are living in. And this lesson is dedicated to a Christian audience. But if you're a non-believer or a seeker, you're welcome to listen too. And everyone who considers themselves a Christian should be listening to this lesson, because I'm going to give you information that can strengthen your faith. And we will look at scientific information I believe overwhelmingly proves the existence of the God of the Bible, that He is real. Now, some of this information, believe it or not, has been around for many years. Many years, over a decade. But somehow it has not gotten out to the majority of the Christian community in this country. And that's so sad, because everyone's faith needs to be strengthened, and also to help prevent people from falling away from the faith. And we've heard the words of so many people recently that have fallen from the faith, like Marty Sampson of Hillsong, and they talked about the fact that no one is talking about these things. Well, we're going to talk about a lot of the scientific things in today's lesson. And again, I hope that if you're struggling with your faith, if you said, is this really real? Am I just being duped into buying a bill of goods? No, there are logical and scientific reasons for believing in God, the God of the Bible. So in today's lesson, I am going to present some scientific terms and concepts. And we're also going to listen to a 4-minute video. So, and please, I know some of this scientific talk, some people have a tendency to tune out. Please don't. Please stay with me, and I will do my very best to try and explain things as best I can. And the great thing about this lesson, since it's online, is that if you don't catch something the first time, you can always rewind and listen to it again. So why am I doing this type of a lesson? Well, for decades I've noticed that science has pretty much run roughshod over the Christian worldview. A lot of Christians are intimidated by the highly educated scientists who are experts in their field. And of course there's also been some big name theologians and apologeticists who have pretty much embraced the billions and millions of years world, the old earth type of theology about creation. And this is sad, because the Bible quite plainly in Genesis chapter 1 and 2 say that the earth and the universe and everything in it was made in 6 days, and that the universe's age at this point in time is about 6,000 to 10,000 years old. So let's get into today's lesson. It's extremely important for Christians to know the origin of the universe. How did all of this start to happen? And when you get to see the evidence, it's a very powerful evidence for the existence of God. When you study the origin of the universe, it's worth your time and effort to learn about what is known as the cosmological argument. And when I use the term argument, I'm not talking about that heated debate where tempers fly and two people are mad at each other. No, the word argument is used in logic. Logic has prepositions and conclusions and arguments, whether they're congruent, rational, irrational. So the argument is a logical argument where we're going to present two premises and a conclusion. And we're going to look at this video now. It's by a Christian apologeticist by the name of William Lane Craig. He's been around for quite a number of years, and he's done a lot of apologetic works. And he's done a brilliant job. I think when you can watch this video, you know, the video and is worth 1,000 words that I could speak, because there's some visual to it. So at this point in time, we're going to listen to a video. It's about 4 minutes and 11 seconds long, so listen to this.
Does God exist? Or is the material universe all that is, or ever was, or ever will be? One approach to answering this question is the cosmological argument. It goes like this: whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. Is the first premise true? Let's consider. Believing that something can pop into existence without a cause is more of a stretch than believing in magic. At least with magic, you've got a hat and a magician. And if something can come into being from nothing, then why don't we see this happening all the time? No, everyday experience and scientific evidence confirm our first premise. If something begins to exist, it must have a cause. But what about our second premise? Did the universe begin? Or has it always existed? Atheists have typically said that the universe has been here forever. The universe is just there, and that's all. First, let's consider the second law of thermodynamics. It tells us the universe is slowly running out of usable energy, and that's the point. If the universe had been here forever, it would have run out of usable energy by now. The second law points us to a universe that has a definite beginning. This is further confirmed by a series of remarkable scientific discoveries. In 1915, Albert Einstein presented his general theory of relativity. This allowed us, for the first time, to talk meaningfully about the past history of the universe. Next, Alexander Friedmann and George Lemaitre, each working with Einstein's equations, predicted that the universe is expanding. Then in 1929, Edwin Hubble measured the red shift in light from distant galaxies. This empirical evidence confirmed not only that the universe is expanding, but that it sprang into being from a single point in the finite past. It was a monumental discovery, almost beyond comprehension. However, not everyone is fond of a finite universe, so it wasn't long before alternative models popped into existence. But one by one, these models failed to stand the test of time. More recently, 3 leading cosmologists, Arvind Borde, Alan Guth, and Alexander Vilenkin, proved that any universe which has on average been expanding throughout its history cannot be eternal in the past, but must have an absolute beginning. This even applies to the multiverse, if there is such a thing. This means that scientists can no longer hide behind a past eternal universe. There is no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning. Any adequate model must have a beginning, just like the standard model. It's quite plausible then that both premises of the argument are true. This means that the conclusion is also true. The universe has a cause. And since the universe can't cause itself, its cause must be beyond the space-time universe. It must be spaceless, timeless, immaterial, uncaused, and unimaginably powerful, much like God. The cosmological argument shows that, in fact, it is quite reasonable to believe that God does exist.
Okay, I hope that you've enjoyed that video by Dr. Craig. He lays out a simple yet powerful logical argument that proves that it's very reasonable to believe in the God of the Bible. So let's go over the logic of this argument. Premise number one, as it was said in the video, whatever begins to exist has a cause of its existence. Simply put, if something begins to exist, it's because something else caused it to come into being. And we know this is true because, like the video said, we don't see things just popping into existence without a reason. There's no evidence in secular science and in our reason and life experience to ever see anything just pop into existence without a cause. So, and this includes the Big Bang, because that's what the atheists are hanging a lot on, is the Big Bang, where, you know, pop, the bang happened and everything came from this one little central point in time. But the problem with that is, where did the Big Bang come from? We'll talk about that in a little bit later. So premise number one is anything that comes into being has a cause. Premise number two that was in the video said the universe began to exist. It came into being. And the second law of thermodynamics shows that the universe could not be eternal. Please, this is a very, very important point that every Christian and every person listening needs to understand, that secular science, non-Christian scientists, have declared that the universe is not eternal. It could not have been. It had to have had a beginning, or else this universe would have run out of useful energy long time ago. And remember, both atheists and believers accept the laws of thermodynamics. So without going into the details of the laws of thermodynamics, the big point to understand with the second law of thermodynamics for our purposes today is that whenever a reaction, whenever energy is transferred or released anywhere in the universe, whenever a reaction occurs, waste heat is universally increasing and usable energy in the universe is decreasing with each and every reaction. Okay? And again, if the universe were to last long enough, if Jesus wasn't coming back and this universe was just allowed to go on into time, eventually both secular and Christian scientists both agree that this universe would, all of the matter would spread out, all of the useful energy would run out, and the heat would dissipate throughout the universe, and it would be a cold, dead, lifeless universe. And again, though, this would take countless eons of time to occur. However, if the universe was truly eternal, like the atheists claim, then by now those countless eons of time have already passed, and again, this universe would be out of usable energy, and it would be in a cold, dead, dark state. This is huge. I'm telling you, again, this is a little bit of science, but it's worth your time and effort. Every Christian needs to get a grip and grasp this important truth. The universe is not eternal. The universe is not eternal. That means that premise number two of the cosmological argument is true, that the universe began to exist. That makes the conclusion, premise number three, true. It says, therefore the universe has a cause because it had a beginning. If something begins to exist, something had to make it happen. And again, it doesn't matter whether it's a single universe or multiverse. I'm not going to go into that. That's a little bit of science fiction that we don't need to go into. You're welcome to Re-look at the video, they talk about it in the video. But scientists, the atheist scientists want to say, well, you know, the Big Bang is the cause of the universe. That all of a sudden, bang, everything started from a single point, and everything we know grew out of that explosion. Well, the problem is that the logic of the cosmological argument applies to the Big Bang as well. It says, of course, whatever begins to exist has a cause for it to begin to exist. Well, the Big Bang began to exist, they say. Okay? Then that means the Big Bang had a cause. So what caused the Big Bang? There had to be something else in existence to cause the Big Bang. What was before the Big Bang? You will, if you were to go online on your favorite search engine, Google or Bing or one of those other ones, and Google what was before the Big Bang or what caused the Big Bang, you will not find one credible answer to what caused the Big Bang. Scientists, if you pin them down and try to ask them for an answer, they'll say, well, we just don't know yet. They'll try and evade the question because the answer is so common sense that everybody can understand it. Something caused the Big Bang. Something caused the universe to start to exist. All right, so what caused the universe to begin to exist? Let's go through the steps of logic. As we saw in the video, the cause of the universe must be spaceless, timeless, immaterial, uncaused, and powerful. And here's another important point. The cause of the universe is either God-caused or not God-caused. And I think it's most reasonable to believe in the God of the Bible because he best fits this description of the cause of the universe. That is, he is outside of time and space, and that means he's spaceless and timeless. He is immaterial because he is spirit, and he is uncaused. He has no beginning and he has no end. And he is also powerful. He is omnipotent. He has all power. Well, since atheists deny the evidence of God, naturalism is their best, if not only, other reasonable argument for the cause of the universe. People who hold to this view of naturalism believes that there is no supernatural God or spiritual dimension. They believe that science is the sole basis of what can be known about the universe, that everything can be explained by science. But naturalism is illogical and irrational because it violates common sense reasoning. My friends and family, nothing cannot create everything. In fact, nothing cannot create anything. No matter what worldview or religion you choose to accept, something must be eternal as the first cause for the universe, for everything that now exists. And atheists deny what is so logically obvious. We read in Romans chapter 1, verse 19 and 20 these words. They know the truth about God because he has made it obvious to them. For ever since the world was created, people have seen the earth and the sky. Through everything God made, they can clearly see his invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, so they have no excuse for not knowing God. Yet naturalism is accepted by multitudes of bright and highly educated individuals. And we're going to talk in depth about why they hold on to this illogical worldview so tightly in just a little while. But an eternal God, an eternal omnipotent God that has no beginning and no end is a more rational explanation for the creation of the universe rather than the secular worldview that says nothing has created everything. And like I said, you can Google it all you want, but you won't find one credible explanation for what caused the Big Bang or what was first. So, like I said, something has to be eternal, and even secular scientists know or should know that it is not the universe. So that gives the atheists a dilemma. They have to come up with a third alternative, something other than God and naturalism, because they don't want God, and naturalism is illogical and irrational. So they have to come up with another alternative that meets the criteria for the cause of the universe, which means it has to be outside of time and space, it has to be eternal, it has to be immaterial, and it has to be powerful. Because remember, this universe has a fixed amount of energy, and something had to interject that energy, fixed amount of energy at the beginning of the universe. So let's face it, that atheists, if they can't come up with a rational third alternative, then they should be honest enough to say that there is a God, we just don't want to submit to him, which is the more honest answer. But the atheists just can't even bring themselves to saying those words. So we're going to now look at why do secular scientists and secular atheists have such an opposite view on things? Why do they fiercely claim that they have scientific proof and that their facts are undisputable? What about the facts of science, they will say. You can't deny the facts of science, and they talk a good talk, and they show a lot of confidence, and they might show a lot of astronomical and pretty pictures of chemistry and nature, but the fact of the matter is they don't have the proof. They don't have the proof. And there is no denying that scientists truly do believe that there is no God. They hang on to that. They have to, as we're going to see in a few minutes. They will stake their reputations, their careers, and in a way they stake their very lives and their soul to defend this worldview that there is no God. But remember, they are of the world, and they are influenced and manipulated by their selfish desires for autonomy. That means they get to call what is right and what is wrong. And by the influences of the kingdom of darkness, which of course they don't even believe it exists. You can be sincere. These scientists and atheists are very sincere, but sincerity does not make something true. Furthermore, they may have very accurate data that is indisputable, but their conclusions about the data are two different things. And who's to say that they have the right interpretation of the data? That is one of the key lesson points here, is don't believe every scientist is able to interpret the data and create a proper worldview. You have to examine what they say in the light of logic and other scientific facts. All right, so remember, they have this mindset that there is no God, so whenever they look at evidence and see a phenomenon in the universe, they say, well, there's no God, so what explanation can I come up with for this? So their mind will automatically start thinking, and their imagination will come up with theories, a lot of elaborate and brilliant and mathematical theories, but their bias will exclude even the possibility that there is a God. And we know there's been atheist scientists around for centuries, because a lot of people just don't want God in their lives. And they have to deny the existence of God so that their conscience won't bother them continuously. And they'll say they trace everything back to the Big Bang, but as I said earlier, they can't even explain that. So by creating a worldview without God, the individual is not answerable to God, and they can do as they please. And again, this is because they want their selfish sins. They want their selfish pleasures, their selfish deeds. And because these people want their selfish sins, they readily accept the fact that God is not real. And that's why it is so appealing to many non-believers in the world today that there is no God, so you can do what you want to do. You can enjoy all of the sinful sexual pleasures outside of marriage all you want to. And you don't have to feel guilty about it because there's no God. They are influenced, they are biased internally by their desire for sinful pleasures. And that's why we read in Romans 1 verses 18 and 19 these words, "But God shows his anger from heaven against all sinful, wicked people who suppress the truth by their wickedness," which is their selfish desire for sinful pleasures. Verse 19, "They know the truth about God because he has made it obvious to them." And again, the cosmological argument, anything that has a beginning, has to have something has caused it. And the universe had a beginning, so something had to cause it. It's so obvious, and they will deny the obvious. They choose to deny the obvious proofs that we have gone over in this lesson. And here's the thing, a lot of people, when you try and present this evidence, they shut you down. They don't and won't even listen because they have to stay with the lie that there is no God, because if God exists, then they're in trouble. And even though they say they follow the evidence wherever it leads, not true. Their internal bias against God will filter out anything related to proving God exists. Even if God is the only possible answer, like we showed with the cosmological argument. And they have used their imagination to create so many different origin theories of the universe, like RNA world. I know most of you don't understand what RNA world is, but some of you do if you've had the science. But RNA world is a very bankrupt, statistically impossible worldview that, again, cannot even pass the test of common sense reasoning. So let's go into it. Why do atheists so fiercely say that there is no God in spite of the reasonings that we have just put forth? They just cannot bring themselves to accept even the possibility of the existence of God. And through that behavior, we can actually, as Christians, learn something about the human heart that gives us further proof for the existence of God. And to show this, I want to put forth a theory, and I think you'll see that it is true if you think about it. And that is that every human being that has ever been created in this time period and in the past, no matter where in the world, no matter what people group a person was born into, every human being is born with a God-given sense of morality. And we can discern what is right and wrong, fair and unfair, just and unjust. We have that capability just built into us, given to us by the Creator. And we cannot violate this inborn sense of morality without justification. We see this all the time in unbelievers because you hear it all the time. They see something unjust or horrible happening in the world, and the atheist will say, that's not fair, that's unjust. If God was real, he wouldn't allow that to happen. But the point is they can tell, they can discern what is right and what is wrong. And everyone all over the world has this capability if your inborn morality hasn't been seared, reprogrammed, or appeased. So people either deny that there's a God, or they come up with another God so that they can make up rules for what is right and wrong. The end result is that in either case, by denying God or making up a God that lets them do what they want to do, they appease or they override or they sear their God-given morality. And that gives them justification to do what they want to do. And here's the thing, that inborn sense of right and wrong, no human being can override. You can't just go out and do something immoral without justification. Now you might go out and do something horrible, and then your mind has to go to work to justify it. If not, the amount of guilt and remorse that would come onto a person is overwhelming and crushing. So if people really want to do something, they'll do their sin, and then they will sear this God-given conscience and override the alarm bells that God gives us when we're about to do something wrong. So we'll read Romans, again in Romans chapter 1, verses 24 and 25. We read these words. So God abandoned them to do whatever shameful things their hearts desired. As a result, they did vile and degrading things with each other's bodies. They traded the truth about God for a lie, so they worshiped and served the things God created instead of the Creator Himself, who is worthy of eternal praise. Amen. They create a God. Like I said, one of their ways of getting to do what they want to do is they make a lie. They create a God, or they say things about the real God that aren't true, that gives them justification to do what they want to do. And that's bad enough that one person sears their own conscience and they go on doing wrong. But if they convince other people in the society to believe that lie too, well, then a false religion is started. And that lie gets propagated throughout the culture and through future generations. And that means the children will be caught up in a lie. And we see it all the time. There's many old false religions in the world today. Islam, Mormonism, Jehovah's Witness, Hinduism, false religions because somebody created a lie in the past. And it's amazing that millions of people today are trapped by their society that propagates these religious lies. So, the existence of this internal, inborn, God-given morality system demands an explanation. Evolution could not have evolved a sense of morality. And the universal morality that every person has always points to the same moral laws. We know we're doing good by the moral law when we are doing to others as we would have people do to us. In other words, helping and not hurting people. And we're doing bad by this moral code when we selfishly do what we want to do, and that ends up hurting in some way other people. Whether or not you see it, understand it at the time you do those selfish things, when we hurt other people, that's when we're doing wrong by the moral code that God has given us. And everybody, like I said, has this inborn system. And it's seen, again, all over the world. Every time period, every person ever born has this. And yet, some of the cultures have reprogrammed people into believing the lies of their religion. That's why we see people strapping bombs on themselves and blowing people up and going out and killing other people, because they have been programmed with the lies, and their morality has been overrode. So let's talk about one other thing. Let's go back to the atheists who believe that there is no God. I want us to consider what that type of universe, what that type of world would be like. Just let's suppose, just for the sake of an argument, that the atheists were right. Let's suppose that the atheists could come up with a cause for the Big Bang, and that is why this one-time event can never be repeated, but it happened, and suppose they came up with an explanation, and here we are in the world today without a God. What would the future of that type of universe be? Well, we've already explained it. From the second law of thermodynamics, we know exactly what would happen. With enough eons of time, this universe will use up all of its useful energy, and heat will be dissipated, the matter would be spread out, and all of the universe would be cold, dark, lifeless, and dead. There would be nothing that could stop this process either, because any action to try and stop that overall action is itself an action that is expending energy that gives off waste heat. And again, it's just a grinding down of this universe. So again, if that means that there will be an end to all life eventually in the future eons of a universe without God. That means, think about this, if there is no God and the universe is on its way to this cold, dead, energyless state in the future, that means that all life will eventually die. So who cares if man goes on to explore and colonize the whole universe? And if man can achieve heights of scientific and technological wonders, what good is that? And if mankind solves all of the social problems and creates a utopia, not just on this earth, but in the whole universe, even if he does all of these things and more, it will all be futile and useless, because again, the universe and everything in it, including all life, will die, and the universe will run out of useful energy. Everything achieved will be broken down and lifeless and broken apart. So if the atheists were correct that there is no God, then there is no hope for any kind of future for us or any future generation. Oh, maybe for eons to come there will be, but eventually there's not going to be nothing. All life will die. So if the universe is all there is, let us eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Why bother trying to achieve anything? Why should anybody follow any rules? Why should anybody obey any laws? What's the use of living? Let's do what we want to do, since we're on a collision course with death and future eternity. Well, I wanted to point out the hopelessness of the atheistic worldview, but in reality, this universe was created by God. Now, again, if the universe was not created by God, we're living a futile existence. So let's recap two of the most important proofs that we went over on this lesson, kind of summarize the takeaways that I want you to have. One is the cosmological, logical argument about the universe, which says that anything that begins to exist has to have a reason. Something caused it to begin to exist. That thing could not cause its own existence. Something had to cause it. Number two, the universe began to exist, and we went into detail about the fact that the second law of thermodynamics, which both believers and non-believers all agree on are true, that the second law of thermodynamics showed that this universe had a beginning. So that means since the universe had a beginning, something had to be its cause. And the cause of the universe, as we recognize, has to be spaceless, timeless, immaterial, eternal, and powerful. And only the God of the Bible fits that description. So if you find an atheist who wants to argue about the Big Bang, say, well, what caused the Big Bang? And they can't answer that. Or if they do come up with some elaborate answer, say, well, what caused that? And what caused that? And what caused that? You can keep them running in circles. They cannot come up with an answer, because no matter what worldview or religion you choose, something has to be eternal, because nothing cannot create everything. The second proof for God's existence that we talked about tonight was our recognizing the fact that there is an inborn sense of morality that is given to every human being that has ever lived or whoever is living on the planet today. This inborn moral code is too complex to come about by evolution and random process. And this complex moral code, this moral law, has to have a moral law giver. It demands an explanation. How did this come to be? And couple this with the fact that this moral code lines up with the morality of the God of the Bible. And we have two, what I feel like are very ironclad proofs for the existence of God and the Bible. But there is more coming in the next lesson for next Sunday. And we're going to have another video, and the topic, again, is going to be part 2 of scientific proofs for God, for the existence of God. But next week we're going to look at the concept of the fine-tuning of the universe. I hope that many of you have already heard of this. Some of you may have not heard of the fine-tuning of the universe. I want to make it very familiar. Every Christian needs to be very familiar with the concept of the fine-tuning of the universe. And especially if you have kids, this is a very important subject that you need to be teaching them. It will make use of many of the sciences of chemistry, physics, and it can be taught even, to school children. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for being with me this morning, and I look forward to our next lesson next week. Thank you very much.